Welcome to This Explainer. It's so great to have you here. Let's just jump right in, okay? Picture this. You're a young, super ambitious guy named David. David marches right into the office of his mentor, this incredibly wealthy, wise guy named Mr. Wilson. And David? Well, he's looking for the ultimate get-rich-quick scheme. He wants the fast track, that secret code to financial freedom he thinks all the wealthy people are hiding. But what Mr. Wilson actually tells him, it completely flips his perspective. And as we map this whole thing out today, honestly, it might just change yours too. So, have you ever caught yourself wondering this exact thing? What is the millionaire's biggest secret? We always kind of assume it's some hidden stock tip, right? Or a lucky lottery ticket, or just some brilliant shortcut the rest of us haven't figured out yet. Well, looking at the data, the answer isn't a shortcut at all. It's actually just a mathematical law. It's literally sitting right there in plain sight. A fundamental truth that is super easy to understand, but, as you'll see, incredibly difficult to actually put into practice. Okay, let's dive into this. Simply put, compound interest is the phenomenon where you earn interest on your initial investment, and then you just keep earning interest on that accumulated interest over time. Think of it like a snowball rolling down a hill, right? It starts off small, but as it rolls, it packs on more snow, getting larger and moving faster and faster, until suddenly it's this massive boulder. This is the absolute foundational engine of long-term wealth, and it's exactly what Mr. Wilson wanted his young mentee to wrap his head around. So that brings us to Pillar 1, the math of exponential growth. To really grasp how this compounding snowball actually works in the real world, we need to travel back to the famous legend of the chessboard. So the story goes that an inventor named Ravi presented this beautiful, handcrafted chessboard to King Armin. The king was absolutely thrilled with the game, so thrilled, in fact, that he offered Ravi any reward he desired in the entire kingdom. Now, Ravi's request, it seemed surprisingly humble. He asked for just one single grain of rice on the first square of the chessboard, with the amount of rice doubling on every subsequent square. Let's break down the deceptive simplicity of these first few steps, because this is exactly what caught the king off guard. 1 grain on square 1, 2 on square 2, 4 on square 3. Just a constant doubling. The king agreed immediately, probably laughing to himself at how remarkably cheap the inventor's price was. He was completely fooled by those tiny initial amounts. I mean, looking at those first few squares, it just looks like a small, meaningless handful of rice, right? But here is where the math really takes over. As the squares progressed across the board, the doubling turned into millions, then billions, then trillions of grains of rice. By the time they reached the 64th square, there wasn't enough rice in the entire kingdom, or, well, the entire world for that matter, to fulfill the king's promise. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Small beginnings can lead to extraordinary results through compounding. It's this invisible force of exponential growth that results in a staggering, literally unimaginable fortune from just a single tiny grain. Let's move to and see how this builds in Pillar 2, the ultimate advantage, time. Stepping away from ancient kings and bringing things back to modern reality, we really need to focus on time, because time is the true catalyst that makes that compounding math absolutely explode. Let's compare two different paths here. Over on the left, we've got Sarah, who starts investing at age 22. And on the right, we have Zane, who decides to wait until he's 35 to start his investing journey. Now, these divergent paths highlight what is probably one of the most critical lessons in personal finance. When you start matters significantly more than how much you start with. Following this timeline, we can see that at age 22, Sarah's investments begin compounding. So for 13 years, her money is just quietly doing the heavy lifting in the background, doubling and redoubling. By age 35, Zane finally begins putting money away. But fast forward to retirement, and Sarah has accumulated much, much greater wealth. Her early start gave her money 13 extra years of exponential doubling. And that leaves Zane incredibly far behind by the time they both retire, simply because he lost out on the magic of time. To really reinforce this lesson, let's look at another pair, Alex and Maya. Alex begins investing small amounts while he's still a student in college. He doesn't have much spare cash at all, maybe just a few dollars here and there. Maya, on the other hand, waits until she has a much higher income to start investing, because she assumes you need a massive lump sum to make any real difference. But as the math shows us, years later, Alex's early start gives him a massive advantage. The big takeaway here is that you really don't need a lot of money to start. You just need to start as early as you reasonably can to let time do its job. which perfectly tees up Pillar 3, small habits, massive impact. This is where we bring all that lofty math right down to our daily routines. Let's ground these financial concepts in something super relatable. On the left, we have Emma. Emma decides to invest the money she saves by skipping a daily coffee. Meanwhile, on the right, Jake spends that exact same amount every single day on his morning brew. Now, it's just a $5 coffee, right? It seems so completely insignificant in the moment. But let's look at the story of the $5 coffee that changed a life. Fast forward a few decades, and Emma and Jake's financial situations are drastically different. And it's not because Emma inherited a secret fortune or landed some massive corporate promotion. Nope, it's purely because of this one minor daily choice. Emma essentially put a grain of rice on her financial chessboard every single morning and just let it multiply. While Jake, well, he just consumed his. And this brilliantly illustrates our next core takeaway. Small, consistent habits can have a significant long-term impact. Treating your daily micro habits, whether it's skipping a $5 coffee or just putting away a tiny bit from each paycheck, like those individual grains of rice on a chessboard, that is the real fuel for wealth. It's that unglamorous, everyday consistency over time that actually activates the compounding effect. So let's wrap this all up with the resolution: consistency over quick fixes. Bringing the narrative full circle right back to our young employee, David. Mr. Wilson's core principles for true wealth finally become crystal clear. First up, avoid get-rich-quick schemes. They're just an illusion. Second, start as early as you possibly can. Third, harness the incredible power of time. Fourth, maintain consistent daily habits. And finally, just step back and let compound interest do the heavy lifting for you. What David ultimately discovers is that disciplined investing and patience are the true keys. Compound interest heavily rewards patience and consistency, definitely not shortcuts. So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Your financial chessboard is sitting right in front of you today. Where will you place your first grain of rice? Are you going to wait for that so-called perfect moment when you magically have a higher income? Or will you start right now, however small, and let time work its magic? Take a really hard look at your daily habits and your own timeline, because your compounding journey can begin the absolute very moment you decide to place that first grain. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I sincerely challenge you to start harnessing the secret to wealth today.